Hello and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4 Equestria at War. And I know it's been a while, but I'm back. I've had a lot of stuff going on from one, trying to fix these guys to no longer be cats, so my Hoi 4 work took me about as long as making them cats. But the biggest thing that's been making me not have enough time is just Christmas. Christmas is so busy. But today, we're going to be playing Lake City. And we are going to be playing with historical AI focuses on. If you're wondering why, it's because I'm going to be doing the tree that makes everyone join into one nation. And if you put that off, if you put historical AI off, they can all just say, no, we're not going to join you. Go away. And I'd rather them all be forced to say yes. Just saying. In 66 ALB, Grand Prince Blessed Sword faced Strategos Adinatos of Nimbusia in the Battle of Chirangay, and defeated him. The last obstacle to Lake City's domination of the Riverlands was gone, and its hegemony began. It would last for centuries and was later considered the golden age of Lake City's long history. Even the Griffin Zepzin tribes of the south had been subjugated. However, all good things must come to an end. In 353, the Zepzins rose up, tired of wearing the pony yoke on their necks. Soon enough, unrest spread as the East hungered for freedom. Lake City stood no chance as was defeated. The Zepsims, Nimbusia, Rigicans, and all other subject nations in the Riverlands broke free. In 752, the city of Jazergrad was sacked by mercenaries of Emperor Grover I. In the aftermath of this trauma, Grand Prince Frailspear was forced to abdicate his throne, leading to the fall of the Principality of Lake City. From its ashes rose a republic of the same name, which has stood as a beacon of equine kind in eastern Griffonia. Like many pony nations in the region, Lake City is a signatory of the Treaty of Coldstream, a defensive alliance which unifies the various pony republics and kingdoms in eastern Griffonia. While initially this was strictly a military pact, in recent years the scope of this alliance has begun to broaden with talks of a deepening partnership, which would see a unification of Coldstream nations in terms of education, economic development, and currency. While Lake City shares a warm relationship with its pony neighbors, the same cannot be said for the Griffin nations on its western and southern borders. The memories of 752 are still fresh in the collective consciousness, and have only been reinforced through the successive decades of raids and skirmishes. However, a special hatred has been submitted between Lake City and the County of Longsword. The county is led by the tyrant Count Palus Talon, who has shown little regard for respecting the rights of the substantial pony minority within his domains. Beyond her immediate neighbors, the government of Lake City holds on to its seething hatred of the Emperor in Griffinhelm and all manner of left-wing regimes. Like much of Griffinhonia, Lake City's economy is in shambles due to the underdeveloped nature of its industrial base and the overall depression which ravaged the continent for decades. Along with this, Lake City's economy is held hostage by the guilds, a series of monopolistic enterprises which have stranglehold upon many of the nation's resources. Any government which wishes to remedy the nation's lackluster economy must balance investment with a policy that either appeases or reins in the power of the guilds. As a democracy, Lake City is set to hold an election in 1007, with the reigning Grand Mayor Springtime Frost unwilling to seek re-election. His two potential replacements are Wavebreaker and Westerly Leeward. Yeah, sure, those are the only two. Wavebreaker is an independent candidate with ties to the guilds, who has the support of the nation's two largest parties, the Social Democrat Party and the Constitutional Democrat Party. The SDP is a harmony-aligned party which is running on a platform of greater liberalization of the economy and increased social spending, while the CDP is a more conservative alternative, which attempts to enforce the status quo in terms of the government's relationship to the guilds, griffins, and river coalition. Westerly Leeward, on the other hoof, is a far more extremist candidate. He is the leader of the Republican Vanguards, an ultranationalist organization, which hopes to tap into Lake City's rampant xenophobia in order to justify increased military spending and the projection of force in order to ensure Republic security against outside threats. It's worth mentioning that no matter who wins, the new administration will have to deal with the military interference within the Lake City's political system. The army is notorious for using violence in order to ensure the governance of pro-military factions. Recently, this has taken on the form of assassination of the city's last Grand Mayor, with the military then putting in power Springtime Frost. Yet even with this liberal use of violence, the general's public perception of the military is largely positive, due to the valor and honor Lake City's soldiers display in the defense of their republic from the horrors of Griffin kind. Most alarmingly, however, is the talk of a royal restoration. So far these rumors are largely without merit. However, it is no secret there are extremist factions in the military who desire to go away with the bureaucracy the Republic faces and implement a more streamlined system of governance. Yet no matter what the future might bring for Lake City, as long as she sticks together with her allies, then the banner of Equinkind will remain raised across Eastern Griffonia. I'm a true revolutionary. Anytime I play a non-monarchist nation, I make them monarchy. Anytime I play a monarchist nation, I destroy their monarchy and install either a democracy or like a communist republic. I revolution against anything. I don't care what it is. The region of Eastern Griffonia is defined less by strict geographical boundaries and more by the Griffonian Empire's historical lack of influence in the region. As such, it covers a large part of the Griffonian continent, and several races besides Griffins live in these lands. Eastern Griffonia is traditionally divided into three subregions: the Eevee Valley in the south, where Griffins live along the Eevee River and its many tributaries; the Riverlands, a mountainous region populated primarily by ponies, but also by diamond dogs and griffins; and lastly, Bjornfjordas, also known as Hillland, home of the secluded hill ponies. The source of the mined Griffking River lies in the mountains of the Riverlands. From there it flows westwards, almost splitting the continent in two. Another notable feature in the region is the magical Eggsik Forest, rumored to be home of giant spiders. Overall, the nations of the region are less developed than those in the west, primarily due to how far away it is from Equestria and other advanced nations. Out of three subregions, the Riverlands are the most developed. Here, 7 pony nations, and more recently, Diamond Mountain, are united by a defensive alliance known as the River Coalition. In the western Riverlands, there are 2 Griffin nations outside of the coalition, Hellquill and Longsword, remnants of the Grand Crusades of Emperor Grover II. The southern coast of the Riverlands has 3 nations which sprung up after law and order deteriorated in the region. With a diverse populace of ponies, zebras, deer, and griffins, the Eevee Valley to the south is more backwards. Wow, rude. With its griffins clinging strongly to their traditions. Okay. Some, however, want change, and already Brobfeld is engulfed in a brutal civil war against the communists of the Griffin Liberation Army. In the north, the hill ponies have no such desire to embrace modernity. Their tribes are like a time capsule of the bygone age. The tribal chieftains holding to power under the protection of the River Coalition. Off the coast, there is the island of Griffinsilf, home of the changelings, who so far have remained isolated from the outside world. The collapse of the Empire brought many changes to the region. The main antagonist of the River Coalition is gone, and it must now redefine its identity. Some push for federalization, while others want the Coalition to be a thing of the past. The Eevee Valley broke free from the rule of the Empire. but suffers from instability. If reforms are not made soon, the backwards Griffin nations will collapse in on themselves, and a red star will rise from the ashes of old. The hill pony nations are less oppressive, but some ponies push their embracement of modernity regardless. The winds of change are blowing in the east, but none can yet say what kind of change they are bringing. Alright, let's go. First things first, just start building up. You know how I do. Mass up, immediately pushing towards towards civilian growth. Just leave that how it is for now. Politics of the Riverland. In 898, the River Coalition was founded after Emperor Grover II's destructive invasion and continuous raids by neighboring griffins and deer. The founding members of the treaties were the Lake City, Bakara, the River Republic, and Nimbusa. I was a founding member. Although the treaty has been mainly a defensive alliance since its inception, some politicians and their supporters advocate to expand the treaty to allow for more cooperation between the states of the River Coalition. Race to form the River Federation. Increase your standing by completing focuses in the Dreams of Federation branch of your focus tree. Only the first country to complete a focus gains a point, but the whole coalition shares the benefits. At the end, the country with the highest standing can form the River Federation. In addition, the leader of the race acts as the leader of the coalition. The race to form the River Federation has not yet started. Okay. Doop 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 doop. I'll leave these on. Doop doop. Actually, I will just go ahead and turn that off since I have other things to focus on first. Let me put these guys under them because I like to have my special divisions at the top of the list. Alright. And move you up to basic because you are going to be my garrison division. And we're going to start by going ahead and starting the Dreams of Federation. And just in case something weird happens, let's save. And then I'll get into some more reading. This is the first nation I'm playing on the channel that I'm not blind to when I'm playing, because I have played this nation before. Does any of these generals have things to say? Like stories. General Sunrise Sky, born in a scenic oceanside village in Sunny Shore. Sunrise childhood was, on the surface, not unlike many equestrian foals. However, Sunrise grew up in a household marred by alcoholism and abuse. Oh boy. After a particularly bad altercation, which resulted in a kitchen knife being slashed over her eye, a 13-year-old Sunrise ran away from home, stowing away on a merchant ship bound for Rotterdam. Wow. In another turn of events, the merchant vessel was captured and sacked by Hawklander pirates, taking Sunrise with them. After 3 years with the pirates and another year on Federation ship as an expert guide to the Crossroad pirates, Sunrise finally made it to Griffonia. Falling aslant as a small-time criminal in Rotterdam, she became a mercenary under a griffin named Marcus Grimfeathers, and began traveling the continent as a soldier of fortune. Shooting her way through the ranks, both literally and figuratively, Sunrise eventually found herself as a Grimfeathers' right-foot hoof mayor. Eventually, the mercs found themselves in the employ of Count Kalen Black Hollow in a war against Griffinstone, and Grimfeather was met with an ultimate demise, leaving Sunrise in command of the entire company. By 1001, she was hired by Lake City in an effort to maintain discipline within the Lakish troops. Wow. Okay, that's a backstory. You've had some difficult times. And you're also the only one with a backstory. Springtime Frost. Do you really not... Springtime Frost, do you really have nothing? I'm pretty sure, like, other ones do. I'm pretty sure ones that aren't even... Like you're one of the main boys. Okay. So you don't have anything. You're laying. I get it, though. This is earlier in their development compared to their newer thing. Lake City has always been the first point of contact between the ponies and the griffins of eastern Griffonia, leading to the lands being the frequent victim of griffin raids. This long history of brutalization has instilled our ponies with a sense of pride in holding back the hordes of griffin kind. Guilds. The merchant families of Lake City own several powerful guilds. These guilds have a near monopoly on their specialties and can pull strings within the government and military, whilst also keeping the economy tightly under control. Rising militarism. The Lake City army is relatively new, but has proven itself repeatedly against Griffin raiders over the last few decades. Its influence among citizens and the government has grown, leading to the military having considerable influence over society. LCA troops are now present in every aspect of civilian life, with their proud gray uniforms dressed in flowers from passing supporters. Ponies cheer and wave military flags as these brave mares and stallions pass. They are seen as defenders of freedom, even if they plot the occasional assassination of elected officials. Just the occasional, it's not a big deal. And Treaty of Coldstream member. This state has signed the Treaty of Coldstream. In 898, the River Coalition was founded following Emperor Grover II's destructive invasion and the continuous raids by neighboring griffins and deer. The founding members of the treaty were Lake City, Bakara, River Republic, and Nubusia. Although the treaty has been mainly a defensive alliance and exception, some politicians and supporters advocate to expand the treaty to blah 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 blah. That's what I've already read. The River Coalition is primarily a defensive alliance, therefore member states cannot join offensive wars unless they are waged by the coalition leader. Okay. Dreams of Federation. The Treaty of Coldstream was designed in such a way that the coalition members could choose to expand the treaty to certain policy areas. It is a far cry from true political unity, but by breaking open discussion about expanding the treaty, we might be able to set a step in the direction as a true river federation. An ill-timed invitation. Mayor Frost looked out his window, overlooking Jazergrad. He sighed. The city looked ever so peaceful, and yet so much was brewing in those cheerful streets. He turned back towards his desk where the letter was resting, the invitation to the summit in Coldstream. He had been dreading it. The timing of it all had just been so poor. Between the elections, the chaos in Longsword, and the unrest, he feared that leaving for Coldstream would be like leaving the Fire Ponies station in the middle of a drought. And yet, despite it all, the coalition was a vital pillar of the city's stability and democracy. If it wasn't there, what would he even stand in the way of the military taking over? I can ill afford to leave. My staff can hold down the fort for a few days. Just a few days, you got that? Just a few days. You gotta keep things going while I'm gone. Out of sight. Springtime Frost, mayor of Lake City, let out a weary sigh as his boat pulled into the dock. He may have been a fisher once, but those days were long behind him, and the rocking the boat did his stomach ill. As he stepped down onto the landing, he felt his gut twist as he thought of the days to come. He couldn't afford to wait idly here. His rivals would mock him for running from the mess back home. On the other hoof, if he stayed home, he would have been abandoning Lake City's allies and economic partners. Drowning in the sea of stress and worries, he barely acknowledged River Swirl as she welcomed him to the summit meet location. Yet, at the last minute, he snapped out of his melancholy, apologized, and embraced her. "Chancellor Swirl, how good it is to see you." He didn't add anything, and simply left for his occupations with Swirl, looking at him with concern as her aides announced that His Majesty of Deepony was arriving, preventing her from talking to him, but not out of mind. Out of sight, but not out of mind. Poor guy. Poor guy. The elections of 1007. 1007 is an election year in Lake City, and this year promises to be one of the most vicious in recent years, with Grand Mayor Springtime Frost and willingness to seek re-election. Two ponies have come to the forefront of the campaign, Wavebreaker and Westerly Leeward. Wavebreaker is seen as a more traditional candidate with a policy that favors greater cooperation with the River Coalition and increased social spending to alleviate the poverty of the city. This platform has garnered him the support of both moderate Constitutional Democratic Party and the left-leaning Social Democrat Party. Westerly Leeward, on the other hoof, is seen as a more extremist candidate. He calls for increased military spending and a greater role for the military within the affairs of the state. While these beliefs are radical, he's also able to easily tap into the rampant anti-Griffin sentiments of Lake City. Playing upon the lingering phobias of the ponies, his party, the Republican Vanguards, also operate a parliamentary wing, allowing him to intimidate his opponents. Lastly, there are whispers within the military, which state that there are certain officers who wish to return Lake City to its monarchist roots. Keep it quiet. While these radicals should be discredited as a tiny minority, it cannot be ignored that within recent months, the pretender Grand Prince Heavenly Stowe has been unaccounted for by our intelligence agencies. Let's hope it goes smoothly. This is probably why it's gone unnoticed. You don't have an intelligence agency. That's a pretty big problem in your intelligence agencies. Together at last. The delegates of Coldstream Summit had arrived in time and were welcomed by Chancellor River Swirl, Mayor Springtime Frost from Lake City, King Grimhoof of Deepony, President Waterlily of the Bacurn Republic, King Rover Diamondshield of Diamond Mountain, specially accompanied by his daughter Princess Molly, Queen Whitestar of Wittenland, Strategos Pegasus of Nimbusia, and finally Toshik Crimson Nickheart of Ponicus clans. A lavish state dinner was thrown at the old castle of Coldstream and co-hosted by Chancellor Wiverswirl and the Coalition General Reporter. From all accounts, it was a joyous occasion, with a few toasts being thrown. Cling! The evening continued with the traditional ball, though not all leaders attended. Strategos Pagakils, who had already barely partaken at the state dinner, went to bed early, while King Rover Diamondshield went back to his apartments, but was represented by his daughter, Molly. The ball, attended by many honored citizens from all the coalitions, opened with what could have been a diplomatic faux pas. The opening dance that was supposed to feature the leaders dancing in deuce left Waterlily hanging, due to early departure of Pegasus. Yet Princess Molly spontaneously offered the Bacan president to dance with her and the King Grimhoof. Though awkwardly, the dance endeared the crowd and the fashion journalist in attendance. More gloom was Mayor Frost, who was seen dancing at the end of the ball with Chancellor Swirl, after having spent the majority of the evening riding in an alcove. Finally, the night ended on a demonstration of animal techniques by Crimson Nickheart and her entourage at the request of Princess Molly, drawing many cheers before all leaders finally went to bed to get much-needed rest before the various meetings of the summit. The Diamond Princess was the revelation of the night. Woo! Springtime Heart. Springtime Frost moaned weakly as he nursed a cup of herbal tea. His last night writing letters home took its toll on him in the form of a migraine. It was time for this risk of coming here to pay off. But how? If he went home with nothing but a story about one dance to show, his political rivals would have his head. He went to the plenary session confident. He had fitted off the Wittenlandic offers that would have jeopardized the guild's support, and secured a lower tariff for investment deal with the deep ponies. He followed the various speeches, reviewing his own address, carefully written, to say nothing and upset none. The perfect milquetoast speech, and then came his time to speak. He stood up, considered the audience, and after taking a long breath, threw his notes to the side. Dear friends, allow me to thank all of you for coming today. It is a simple thing, really, but how many of our ancestors could have convinced us, meeting peacefully when 200 years ago, we still fought over this very city? I see some grimacing, but still, it is not a testament to how far we've come. How democracy and the rule of law changed us. How collaborating on the simplest of things brought us together. Yet this great concord of ours was born in pain, and in a painful world we continue to live in. Just a few days west of my home city, ponies are being slaughtered in the name of purity. South, Prywin burns as leaders failed to give their citizens a place or bread on their tables. And what of our guest's enemy? What of the Empire? Perhaps good will triumph in that troubled place. Perhaps the frontier shall become a place of meeting rather than fighting. But we're not there, and it is likely that the worst voices get heard in Griffenhelm, like they have before. Whatever comes, we should honor the spirit of Coldstream Treaty and face it together as friends, in peace and harmony. For if democracy fails, if the coalition fails, if we fail, then what but death and misery for decades to come. Perhaps when we meet again, we'll have the occasion to deepen our bonds. It is my deepest hope and wish. Thank you. Yeah, they're not having fun down there. Wavebreaker gives his speech in front of a massive crowd outside of Jezergrad's large theater. Wavebreaker gives another of his pre-election speeches. His platform is twofold. First, he will seek greater security against the Griffin Empire through deeper cooperation amongst the members of the River Coalition. Second, he demands the creation of a generous social welfare system which will protect the citizens of Lake City from poverty, ill health, and unemployment. While his speech is seen as lackluster, pollsters believe that Wavebreaker's election is assured, with his backing from both the SDP and CDP. United, we are strong. The Unlikely Coalition. The summit consisted of a flurry of meetings, many of which allowed for bilateral deals to be made. However, there was one main event. The plenary meeting from which conclusions would be drafted, the summit's final declaration. Each spoke. Riverswirl, as the year's host, opened with a cheerful if timid speech. Strategos Pagakils spoke next, putting the meeting in a foul mood with his strict interpretation of the treaty and his defense of Tree against the perceived criticism. King Grimhoof followed by trying to appease and reiterate the discussion towards the issues of the West and the slaughter in Longsword. President Waterlily pounced on this and spoke of the moral leadership and the need to prevent such atrocities. Queen Whitestar also condemned the Longsword, but focused on Griffin raids and remained uncontroversial. Tausich Crimson Neckheart advised a closer look to the South and the crimes committed in the Osterlands and the Baird, as well as the controversial ideas of a detente with the militant nation of Kaza. King Rover, Diamond Shield, openly lambasted slights against his kingdom and criticism of their continued use of slavery, requiring his allies to instead focus on their military spending. With only the quiet Mayor Springtime Frost remaining to speak, it felt as if the summit would end in a bad note, and yet the quiet mayor instead gave a passionate speech about his pain regarding the atrocities committed west and south, the importance and beauty of democracy, and his desire to see the coalition form closer ties. This final speech caused a pause among the attendants, and then a small applause despite King Rover's disapproval. It was, after all, a rare moment, one of agreement between the de facto leader of the status quo and the most militant nation of the coalition. Now it was for the coalition general reporter to draft the final declaration. Let's go and read the press. The Coldstream Summit. Today, the Coldstream General Reporter released the agreement drafted by the leaders of the River Coalition after their summit in the city of Coldstream. As per the course, the summit formally renewed the defensive pact between all 8 nations and their promise to stand together against any Grothonian incursion. However, the agreement goes beyond the status quo and actively condemns the bloodshed currently occurring in the county of Longsword, warning Count Palace to end his abuse of native ponies. The agreement also hopes for a peaceful resolution of the Broadfield Civil War, but the language included in the pact does not pave the way for an immediately military intervention. Duly noted. And finishing the summit will end this episode for today. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.